folks, how's it going? We're in beautiful Sedona, Arizona, and we're going to fly the Learjet 35, November 354 Charlie Lima, from here in Sedona to Aspen, Colorado, where we'll attempt the really fun, challenging Roaring Fork visual approach to runway 15 in the Flysimware Lear 35. So the aircraft's all gassed up here, ready to go. We've got everything set up in the flight deck, systems are all powered up, and our GTN 750 units have had all the flight plan information inputted. Let's go ahead and hop in the flight deck here, and we'll review our flight plan going to Aspen, Colorado, and do our departure brief, and we'll get going shortly. Okay, welcome aboard the flight deck. Let's take a look at our flight plan here on our GTN 750 unit. So we're here in Sedona, Arizona, and we're going to do the OATES 1 departure out of Sedona. We're going about an hour's trip northeast here towards Aspen. And we'll be cruising at a flight level of 410. But we're going to do the OATES 1 departure to OATES. From OATES, we're going to do the Victor 12 airway to the Winslow VOR. Winslow direct to Dove Creek. Dove Creek direct Montrose. Montrose onto LOYYD. And at LOYYD, we'll sort of vector ourselves for the Roaring Fork visual into 15 at Aspen, which should be a ton of fun. Once again, we're expecting about an hour en route once we get airborne, and we're going to be cruising at flight level 410. So that's our plan. Should be a real nice, fun trip from here in Sedona up to Aspen today.
125.3, good day, 62 Golf.
Okay, let's go ahead and do our departure brief here. The Learjet 35A obviously requires a two-person flight crew. FS2 crew, unfortunately, does not yet make an add-on for the Flysimware Lear 35, but if they did, that'd be awesome. But in the meantime, we're going to be flying this single pilot, and it's certainly going to be a handful of an aircraft to fly single pilot for sure. But let's go ahead and do our departure brief here. Okay, are you ready for the departure brief? Indeed, I am. So this is going to be a standard left seat takeoff with full takeoff power, flap set to 8 degrees, V1 120, VR 130, and V2 133. And the weather at Sedona, winds are calm, visibility 10 statute miles, clear skies, temperature 29, dew point 12, and altimeter is 3013. And let's take a look at our taxi route here real quick. Okay, we're located here at the GA ramp. Obviously, we've got a restaurant directly behind us, along with a bunch of folks sitting outside enjoying the sun and the beautiful weather this evening here in Sedona. So we're not going to be able to start the engines directly here at the stand, obviously. We're going to, in order to minimize damage to people and property, what we're going to do is have the crew of the FBO here pull the aircraft out, position us essentially perpendicular to the runway there on that taxi lane, facing the runway which is off to our left, and that way we can start up the engine safely. But once we've got the engine started up, obviously we're going to be taxiing runway 21 for departure today via Alpha 5, left on Alpha, to hold short of 21 at Alpha 1 for departure. And during the departure, for any malfunctions before V1, such as engine failure, fire, loss of control, aircraft unsafe to fly, I'm going to call stop to reject the takeoff. We'll brake, exit off the runway if possible, and advise ATC of the issue. Any malfunctions after V1, we're going to continue the takeoff and treat it as an in-flight emergency. I'm going to handle the controls and advise ATC, and you back me up with the appropriate QRH procedures and checklists. Pending that, we're going to be departing via the OATES 1 RNAV departure today. It's actually an obstacle departure procedure. Off of runway 21, procedure is to climb direct Fedon, then on a 213 degree track for 8 miles to Hemet. Left turn on a 106 degree track for 12 miles to Zabas. Left turn on a 353 degree track for 15 miles to OATES, at which point we'll be off this departure procedure. Transition level, flight level 180, GPS required, RNAV 1 required, and due to the terrain, it sounds like communications with ATC are unreliable below 10,000 feet. So that's good to note. Regarding obstacles, for for runway 21, there are trees beginning about 1,600 feet from the departure end of the runway, 240 feet right of center line, up to 100 feet AGL. And there is a bush about 150 feet from the DER as well, 202 feet left of center line, 5 feet AGL. This departure procedure does require takeoff minimums, standard takeoff minimums for runway 21. And no real other special considerations here for terrain or weather. We do have a relatively short runway of about 5,100 feet, so we are going to be using full toga power, but we're going to be using a significant portion of the runway length here for our takeoff. But that's fine, no worries. Okay, so that's our departure brief. Any questions? No questions, because obviously I'm the only one in the airplane today, but we'll see if we brief that departure procedure well. If any problems come up during the departure itself. All right. Okay, as mentioned earlier, obviously we've got the restaurant behind us, so we're not going to be able to start up the engines here. Let's hop in back here and we'll close the door. And then we'll have the crew of the FBO pull the airplane out. Okay, door closed there. Let's go ahead and latch the lower door, engage the motor, seal the door. Hear the motor running there. Let's go ahead and latch the upper door, and we'll run the motor again. There we go. That way now, if we need to get the door open in a hurry, we just need to unlatch the upper and lower latches and get the door open. But door has been latched. Let's hop up front here, and let's make sure that the door light is out. Indeed it is. That's fantastic. Okay, through the magic of video editing and the P3D slew function, we are in position for engine start here. All we're going to affect with our jet blast here are some of the trees in the background, some rocks, and the fencing, of course. So we should be okay starting up the engine here. Let's go ahead and get rid of the chocks there. And the ground card is still connected. That's good. Let's go through our start check here. Fuel quantity, balance counters checked and zeroed. Thrust levers to cutoff. Make sure they're in cutoff. Fuel computers on. Beacon coming on. Fasten. Seatbelts, no smoking sign on. Batteries checked, min 24 volts. Got more than that. That's good. Inverters are on. Aux heat off, air conditioning off. Before start check completed to the line. Below the line, cabin door closed, light is out. Belts and harnesses on the right, on the left. Parking brake is set. Hydraulic pump is off. Cell phones are off. Kona coffee on board checked. That's fantastic. And start check is completed. Okay, let's go ahead and start up both engines here. We'll start up the right engine first. We'll move the right start gen switch into the start position. Turbine speed coming up there. 6%, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Let's move the right start gen switch into the right thrust lever rather into the idle detent there. Turbine temp coming up, fuel flow, oil pressure, fan speed coming up. And it looks like a good start there on number 2. Engine is stabilized. Let's go ahead and start up number 1. We'll move the left start gen switch into the start position. Turbine speed coming up there. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Left thrust lever into the idle position there. Turbine temps coming up. Fan speed coming up. Fuel flow, oil pressure on the left engine. And number 1 is stabilizing. And good start there, number 1, ignition coming off. Let's move the left start gen switch into the gen position, right start gen switch into the gen position as well. Good start on both engines. Fantastic. And let's make sure the ground card is disconnected. Indeed it is. Alright, let's go ahead and go through a before taxi check here. GPU is disconnected, generators are online. Started disengagement lights are out, fuel computer checked. Spoiler on, let's go ahead and check that. Let's extend the spoiler, make sure the light comes on in the annunciator panel there. And let's retract the spoiler, make sure that the light goes out. Awesome. Anti-ice checked. No smoking seatbelt signs are on. Windshield heat as required. Gyro flags are clear on the right and on the left. Hydraulic pressure is checked. Circuit breaker is checked. And parking brake can be released. And our before taxi check is complete. Okay, let's get our landing lights in the taxi position there. And we'll get our pitot heats on. And let's do our taxi check. Departure runway buck verified, runway 21. Transponder, let's go ahead and squawk mode C here. Brakes and steering, let's go ahead and get the steering button on there for the nose wheel steering. Anti-skid is on, lights are out, and let's do our flight controls check here. Full up, full down, neutral, full left, full right, neutral. Let's hide the yoke, and let's check our rudder pedals. Full left, full right, neutral. Flight controls check completed. Flight instruments checked, spoilers retracted, light is out. Flap set 8 degrees. Trims 3 set. In the takeoff range, and the trim light is out on the unsure panel. Fuel quantity, balance counter is checked. Current limiters light are out. Electrical panel is checked. Instruments checked. Avionics set and reviewed. Thrust reverse is checked and stowed. Pressurization set and verified. Bleed air cabin air is on, and pressurization system is set for a cruising flight level of 410. All right. Speed box N1 set and verified. Cabin temperature control set. Kona coffee checked, very important. Takeoff briefing confirmed, and taxi check is completed. Okay, let's go ahead and start taxiing out here to runway 21 via Alpha 5 and Alpha. Brake check. And this, of course, is Orbx's fantastic Sedona scenery from way back in the day. It's a number of years old at this point, but it's still a fantastic scenery nonetheless. As with a lot of Orbx airports, it's the little details that make this airport or the scenery so amazing. Like the restaurant back there with all the people hanging out in front, catching some sun, and the little rotating wind turbine there at the terminal building. These little details just make this really nice. And of course, you've got this awesome photoreal scenery coverage for the red rocks around this beautiful airport. Again, a really beautiful, amazing scenery package, this. All right, coming up on the whole short line here for runway 21 at Sedona. Okay, let's hold short here and we'll go through our before takeoff checklist. Okay, parking brake is released, transponder, TAS, TCAS on, thrust reversers armed, pitot heat on, anti-ice is required, lights coming on, landing lights coming on, recognition light strobes coming on, cabin air is on, stall warning coming on, ignition coming on, air, left and right air ignition switches on there, an unsure panel clear except for the steering on light. Departure runway bucks line verified, and before takeoff checklist is complete. Okay, let's get lined up here and we'll get going. Once again, the procedure on the OATES 1 departure is just track straight ahead towards Pheaton, essentially. feet and is about 3 miles straight ahead. Sedona traffic, Learjet 90354 Charlie Lima, taking off runway 21 straight out departure Sedona. Flying offline, but why not practice a few radio calls while you're at it? Okay, let's get lined up here. Okay, we're all lined up. Let's get going. Okay, we're going to set toga here, full takeoff power for takeoff. Let's let the engine stabilize. Let's go full power. Relatively short runway, high elevation here. 5,000 feet approximately elevation. A little bit of a crosswind from the left there, as you can see from the windsock. Okay, V1 rotate, V2 positive rate, gear up, yaw damper engaged. Let's back off on the thrust levers there. Flaps up. Let's go to about 95% N1 there, so we climb out on the OATES 1. Okay, let's go ahead and engage the autopilot here. Alt cell, vertical speed mode for now, and nav mode. And let's go through our after takeoff flows here. Thrust reversers coming off. We're accelerating to 250 knots. Air ignition switches coming off, and landing lights coming off. And there's 250 knots. We'll go into speed mode there on the climb. And let's switch to Phoenix departure there. Okay, we're climbing out at 250 knots on the OATES 1 departure. Beautiful views there as we climb out over Sedona, Arizona. Nice little flyby there. Turning left over Hemet towards Zabas. Okay, we're true 10,000 there. Let's go and get our seatbelts off. And let's assume we've been cleared by ATC to continue climbing up to flight level 410 here. That's our cruising flight level. Leaving Sedona there. The airport, of course, is built on a plateau, or a mesa rather. Got a steep drop off on all sides. Beautiful airport, beautiful location for sure. Okay, let's go through our climb check here. Landing gear is up, yaw damper is engaged. Thrust reversers off, flaps are up. Pressurization checked, it is working as it should be. Ignition is off, landing taxi lights are off. Hydraulic pressure checked. Angle of attack indicator cross-checked, looking good on both sides. Climb check complete, and let's do our 10,000 foot check as well. No smoking seatbelt sign is off. Pressurization checked once again, and our 10,000 foot check is complete. Next up is our transition check once we get to 18,000 feet. Okay, we're turning left now from Zabas onto OATES. Course of 353 there. Okay, coming up on transition here. That's reset altimeters 29092, and let's do a transition check. Okay, altimeters 29092, cross-check both sides. Recognition lights can come off. pressurization system checked. Once again, make sure it's doing what it's supposed to. Indeed it is. NEI system sets required during the climb, and transition check is completed. Okay, awesome. Okay, passing through flight level 1902, climbing up flight level 410. Going from Zabas onto OATES, OATES onto Winslow via the Victor 12 airway. Departing beautiful Sedona, Arizona off to the left side of the airplane there. There's the airport directly below us that we just departed from. And we're quite a ways about the airport. Okay. And let's take a look here how long we have left to go to Aspen. We've got about another hour and 5 minutes left to go to Aspen. And another 360 miles from here to Aspen. Awesome. Okay, folks, sit back, relax, enjoy some Chaseplane cinematic camera views of the climb and the cruise. And through the magic of video editing, we'll talk to you again in just a few short minutes as we come up on our top of descent into beautiful Aspen, Colorado. Enjoy. Okay, folks, welcome back. So we're coming up on our top of descent here in just under 7.5 minutes into beautiful Aspen, Colorado. We're cruising at flight level 410. Coming up on the Dove Creek VOR, proceeding on to Montrose after that. And our top of descent is about midway there between Montrose and Dove Creek. Let's go ahead and start setting things up for the descent here. Let's go ahead and set our cabin controller here, the pressurization system to our field elevation, which is 7,800 feet approximately. There we go. And let's go ahead and do our approach brief here. Okay, so the weather at Aspen, winds are calm. Visibility 10 statute miles, clear skies, temperature 23, dew point 06, and altimeter is 3030. So a nice high pressure in the Rockies here. And no star on this arrival here, but we are proceeding direct Dove Creek onto Montrose. We'll be initiating our descent about halfway to Montrose there from Dove Creek. Montrose onto LOYYD. We'll be crossing LOYYD at flight level 190. And from LOYYD, we're going to proceed on an approximately 020, maybe 030 heading towards Carbondale up ahead and the Roaring Fork River. Once we've got the river in sight, we'll go ahead and follow the river in to do the Roaring Fork visual approach runway 15 at Aspen. So that is our plan. Okay, let's pull up the iPad here, and let's take a look at the Roaring Fork visual runway 15 approach plate here. Okay, ATIS is on 120.4, Aspen approach 123.8, tower 118.85, and ground 121.9, and we're going to plan on the approach coming in over Carbondale here. So recommended altitude from the Carbondale side once we're over the Roaring Fork River is about 10,000 feet. But we'll essentially be descending and following terrain in here all the way to 15 at Aspen. But this is one of the more comfortable approach paths on this Roaring Fork visual approach plate. There's a number of different avenues for doing this approach as listed by all the arrows here. The Carbondale approach allows us to descend at a much more comfortable rate compared to some of the other approach paths here, which require a much steeper descent angle. Visual approaches to runway 15 are in progress. Clearances will be given utilizing in part the following phraseology. Ident cleared for Roaring Fork visual approach to runway 15. In our case, that's 254 Charlie Lima. Weather minimums for this approach, pretty high actually, ceiling of 6,000 feet and visibility minimum of 10 statute miles. Airport elevation 7,837 feet, and the MSA is within 25 nautical miles of the red table VOR, which is right there. It's 13,100 feet in the sector to the northwest, and 15,700 feet everywhere else, essentially to the south and the northeast there. And one of the interesting things about this approach plate is that the only nav aid that's listed is the red table VOR, which is right there. Everything else is just purely visual based on visual references, like Mount Sopris, Capitol Peak, Castle Peak, the Roaring Fork River, Independence Pass, etc. So it's a really, really interesting approach plate for sure. There is no published missed approach procedure for this approach, given the very high ceiling and visibility minima. This approach does require radar. Procedure is not authorized at night. And the runway 15 PAPI on the left side has a steeper glide path of 3.5 degrees. It is a cold temp restricted airport, but we're flying in at the height of the Colorado summer here, so obviously we're not going to need that. We're going to be perfectly fine. And we are going to be landing flaps 40 today, and our VREP is going to be 123 correction at our current or anticipated landing weight, and our approach speed is going to be 130. And once we land, we're going to try and exit on either Alpha 4 or Alpha 5 if we can get it, and hang a left onto Alpha, taxi via Alpha to the GA apron there and the FBO. which is pretty close to the Alpha 3 Alpha intersection. And we're coming up on our top of descent here into Aspen. Let's go ahead and roll our altitude selector down to flight level 190. And let's go to alt cell, and let's go ahead and initiate our descent. We'll back off the throttle just a smidgen there. And we'll initiate that descent. There we go. Want to descend close to 250 knots there. And let's make sure we finish up the approach brief here. In regard to special considerations, obviously we do have terrain in proximity, in close proximity on the approach path here over the Roaring Fork River. And so what we want to do is make sure that we inhibit the TAS system, so that way we're not getting any unnecessary alerts that can divert our attention away from the approach itself. So I've already disabled the TAS alerts on the second GTN 750 unit. I'll do so on the first unit as well, once we've got visual. And other than that, I think we're all good. So that's our approach brief. Let's go ahead and put the iPad away. All right, and let's go ahead and do our descent checklist here. Okay, descent checklist: windshield heat, aux defog as required. We're all good there. Cabin controller set to field elevation. Let's make sure that is in fact set. In fact, it is. That's awesome. ADI systems as required, and our descent check is complete. All right, fantastic. Passing through flight level 371 there, on our way down to flight level 190. About 8 minutes to go before we reach flight level 190 and LOYYD. Fantastic. And it looks like beautiful clear skies here over the Rockies as we continue our descent into Aspen. Besides this one lone cloud here, beautiful clear skies up ahead of us, which should make for a fantastic arrival into Aspen later. Okay, we're passing over Montrose here, proceeding on to LOYYD. And once we get to LOYYD, as I mentioned earlier, we'll continue on that heading that we're proceeding towards LOYYD, about 020, maybe right turn slightly to 025 or 030, and we'll continue descending down to our MSA, which is, the MSA is 15,700. We'll probably descend down to 16,000 until we've got a visual of the river and the valley that we want to follow into Aspen on the Roaring Fork visual. And at that point, we'll take it off autopilot, continue our descent, and fly it in manually. So that is our plan. Beautiful views of the majestic peaks here around the Aspen Valley. We've got Capitol Peak and Mount Sopris off the nose there to the right. Both rising to an elevation of around, actually Capitol Peak rises to an elevation of over 14,000 feet, and Mount Sopris rises to an elevation of about 13,000 feet. Pretty high peaks up here, but nice clear skies here, beautiful VFR conditions. Should certainly make for a nice fun arrival into Aspen. The only clouds are off to the left side there, off to the west. Okay, altitude capture mode engaging there on the AFCS. And let's level off here and at flight level 190 as we come up on LOYYD. 6 miles to go to LOYYD. Once again, at LOYYD, we're going to continue on our present heading and continue our descent down to about 16,000 feet, pretty close to the MSA south of Red Table. Okay, altitude hold mode engaged. Going to roll my altitude selector here down to 16,000. Let's engage heading select there. Proceed on our current heading versus following the LNAV path towards Aspen there. And let's go ahead and continue our descent here down to 16,000. Okay. Continue our descent, coming up on our transition level here, flight level 180. Let's go and get the seat belts on, recognition lights on. And let's go ahead and reset our altimeter 3030 there. Altimeter setting at Aspen. Okay, let's do our approach check here. Altimeter is 3030, set and cross-check. Recognition lights on. Belts and harnesses on. Pressurization system checked. No smoking seatbelt sign on. Passenger briefing, cabin secured, complete. Circuit breakers checked. Hydraulic pressure and emergency air pressure checked. Landing data computed and set. Approach speed of 130, set of the speed bug there. Fuel computed and set. Approach briefing completed, and approach check is complete. All right, fantastic. And we've got a visual of the river up ahead, and we're just going to follow the river and the valley in towards Aspen. I do have the old Aerosoft Aspen scenery here, which looks pretty nice, despite the scenery itself being a bit old and dated. It still looks quite nice. Okay, coming up on 16,000 there. And in preparation for the approach, I'm going to go ahead and on the thrust reversers right now. Let's turn on the ignition switches as well, so I don't forget later. Obviously, I'm flying this single pilot here, and don't have a co-pilot to help us out. So I want to get that stuff turned on right now, that way I don't forget it later. Another thing I'm going to do, of course, is go to the terrain page here and inhibit the TOS alerts, so I don't have to worry about that later on. So that's the Aspen Valley over there, and we got a visual of the river down there. We're just going to follow the river in down the valley. Eventually we'll come up on a highway, and we're going to follow the river and the highway down into Aspen 15. Okay, let's go ahead and disconnect the autopilot here. Let's turn off the flight directors. Let's go ahead and start our descent, and we'll follow the Roaring Fork visual approach here. Once again, there's a river down there. That's the river we're going to follow in. And you want to make sure you don't confuse it with the other river, or the other, might be a fork in the river there, the other part of this that leads to Rudy Reservoir there. That actually is a completely different approach. I'm not sure if that is Rudy Reservoir. That might be a different reservoir, but either case, you don't want to be following that fork because that'll lead you in a different direction. I think actually following that direction might lead you towards Red Table and a different, even more challenging visual approach to runway 33. There's this visual approach to runway 33 at Aspen called the 100 Creek visual. Not as well known, but super fun, it looks like, from the chart that is available for the Otter Creek visual. That is an approach I certainly want to try on channel at some point as well. If not in P3D, then certainly in the new Microsoft Flight Simulator with all that gorgeous photoreal VFR scenery that we're all going to be treated to. Okay, let's continue our descent here. And I'm just over Carbondale right now, and I'm following the river in. Okay, let's increase our rate of descent here. We're about 15 miles away from Aspen. Going to slow down to about 180 here. Beautiful views here. There's Aspen and some of that gorgeous photoreal scenery. And the airports and the runway itself are kind of hidden away a little bit behind some terrain there. But we're going to catch sight of that later. Okay, let's go flaps 8 here. And there's the highway below us that I mentioned earlier. Might be an interstate, actually. It parallels the river there. So we're going to be following the highway and the river inbound towards Aspen 15 there. A little bumpy here. A little bit of turbulence over the mountains. But then again, what would a flight over the Colorado's Rockies be without a little bit of turbulence? Okay, got the runway in sight there and the Pappies as well, tracking just a little bit high here. We'll just continue following the river inbound. Let's go and get the landing lights on. The landing lights, of course, are mounted on the landing gear, so they won't be visible until the gear is down. Okay, let's get the gear down here. And let's start slowing down here to our final approach speed. Okay, let's go flaps 20 there. And we're starting to get back on the glide path here. Let's go flaps full, slow down to our final approach speed of 130 knots. And let's do our landing checklist here. Flaps down, landing gear down, 3 green, really important. Thrust reversers armed. Air ignition switches are on. Cone of coffee is stowed, really important, and landing checklist is complete. Okay, doing good so far. It is a steeper 3.5 degree glide path as per the Pappy, like we noted earlier. Let's start rolling out in final here. Just spectacular approach to this. It's super challenging, especially in an aircraft as challenging to fly as the Lear 35. Okay, rolling out in final. Okay, and below 200 feet AGL there. We can go ahead and use the aiming point for reference, and less so the PAP piece. Okay, touchdown. Spoilers extended. Thrust reversers deployed. Let's get on the brakes as well. Thrust reversers retracted. We'll try and exit here on Alpha 5 if we can. Actually, we're not going to be able to make Alpha 5, unfortunately. Wasn't quick enough on the brakes. Okay, spoilers retracted. We'll take Alpha 6 instead. No big deal. But that worked out pretty nice, actually. Welcome to Aspen, ladies and gentlemen. Pretty high density altitude today. Outside air temperature was about 25 degrees Celsius. So we're landing with a relatively high ground speed as a result of that. Okay, there is the main terminal building off to the right there with the United Express CRJ there, it looks like. And further ahead on Alpha, there is the GA ramp and the FBO building there. Looks like a nice ski lodge almost, the way that's designed. Really nice and inviting, I'm sure, especially in the wintertime. But before we taxi on in, let's go ahead and pause here momentarily. We'll take a look at a couple of quick replays of that landing, of course, and we'll see how we did.
With the Echo Darn Center, send via Zombie 3 arrival, Denver altimeter 2999.
Okay, folks, welcome back. That was a super fun approach for sure. Unfortunately, due to some artifacts with the Chaseplane replay system, sometimes we have a little bit of jittering going on there in terms of Chaseplane's reading of the aircraft position, especially during the flare, etc. And that's the reason you saw a little bit of that weird tire smoke effect. That sometimes happens with Chaseplane replays. But no big deal. Overall, not a bad approach or landing. Always struggle with flaring this aircraft the right way, especially in flight sim. When you're staring at a flat screen, you don't have the sense of depth perception that you would in a real aircraft, because you don't have your peripheral vision engaged as well, like you would in a real aircraft. So flaring this aircraft is super tough in flight sim, especially with no radio callouts. So you usually end up flaring just slightly high over the runway in order to avoid slamming into the ground. And that's what happened here. I think we flared maybe about 5 feet, started leveling off, and then gently try to ease the airplane back down onto the ground. That's the way that went. Okay, let's go ahead and get the landing lights here back to taxi. Recognition lights off, strobes off. And let's go through our after landing checklist. Stall warning switches off as we taxi down Alpha here to the FBO ramp. Pitot heats off. Ignition standby. Thrust reversers disarmed. Cabin air off. And windshield defog and nacelle stabilizer wing heats off. Hydraulic pressure checked. Spoilers retracted. Flaps coming up. And we'll taxi straight ahead to the FBO building there. Park, I think, right next to that citation, if we can. Now let's continue through the after landing checklist here. Unnecessary avionics off. Transponder is required, and after landing check is complete. We'll continue past the citation here and park to the left side rather of the citation, facing the same way the citation is towards the FBO building there. Let's go and get the taxi lights off as we turn into the ramp here. And let's turn into the ramp here.
You got it, and if you wanted to depart via park, it's still about 20 miles from the field. I just can't get you out with my rules.
Okay, and we'll park parallel to the citation there. Okay, let's stop it right there. All right, let's go ahead and set the parking brake. And let's go through a shutdown checklist here. Parking brake is set, anti-ice is off, transponder to standby. Avionics master off. Standby gyro uncaged. Emergency battery off. Air conditioning off. Coffee off. So let's stow that away for our debriefing session later if we need to have one. And thrust levers to cut off. So we'll right click on the thrust levers here to cut both engines. Both engines are cut. Start gen switches into the off position of both engines. Or both start gen switches rather. Inverters coming off. Fuel transfer closed. Fuel transfer off rather, and cross flow valve closed. Beacon light off as the engines have shut down there. And let's turn off the batteries as well. Actually, radio altitude, autopilot master switch is off, and let's go ahead and turn off the batteries as well. There we go, and now the light's coming off as well. Okay, control lock installed, and parking brake is off for the chocks to come in later, or as the chocks come in, and our shutdown check is complete. Okay, welcome to Aspen, ladies and gentlemen. Let's hop in back, open up the door, and let the folks in back outside. Okay, let's unlatch the upper door, lower door, and let's open the door here. There we go. Let's hop down the steps, step out into the beautiful, crystal clear, fresh air here of the Colorado Rockies. Okay, folks, welcome to beautiful Aspen, Colorado. This was a super fun flight back in the Flysimware Lear 35 from Sedona, Arizona, here to Aspen, Colorado. And we certainly had a lot of fun with the fantastic roaring fork visual approach to runway 15 here at Aspen. Super fun flight, super fun approach. Strongly recommend trying out this approach if you haven't done it yet in the sim. It's always a ton of fun and a nice way to test your skills and challenge yourself a little. Okay, folks, as always, if you like this content, be sure to hit the thumbs up and consider subscribing. And I look forward to catching you in a future video. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Y'all take care. Bye-bye.